Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, we are going to do another Irish classic from what you've told me back on Instagram about what I should be making this season. So many of you, I think it was 925 voted that I should be making Irish scones. I did a little bit of research and tried to figure out what is the difference between an Irish scone and a regular British scone and whatnot. And to my understanding, they're just a little less sweet. They're made with milk. And they're just like fluffy and delicious, and you serve them with jam and cream, and some people serve them with jam and clotted cream. So you do you. I'm gonna serve them with butter and some homemade jam. They're really, 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 really delicious. They don't take very long to make. I've got my oven preheated to 375. Oh, and by the way, you've all told me if I'm making Scottish, if I'm making Irish scones, I better make them round. So they will be round and they will be perfection. In this bowl, I've got all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, some baking powder, and to it we are adding some sale. Give that a stir. And now I am going to take some butter. You want your butter to be cold. I will very often, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know, I will very often pop butter in the freezer and then just use a cheese grater to grate it. It makes it really easy. Add your butter. And I'm going to use a pastry cutter to just cut that butter into the dry ingredients. Now, like I said, when I use my cheese grater to like really grate my butter, I don't even need to do this because it literally, I can just mix it with my hands. And if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can just use 2 forks. And if you don't want to do that, you can literally go in here and just use your hands like this to break them up. Now, a lot of recipes will call for raisins or currants in this biscuit. You can do with or without. I love currants, so I'm adding some. What I found that I really prefer is to soak them for about 20 minutes into some boiling water. And what that does is it kind of like rehydrates them so that when you add them to a biscuit, they kind of have a little bit of life to them rather than just being really, really dry, because it's not like they're going to be in a ton of liquid or simmering or anything like that, so that they don't really properly rehydrate. So I like doing that. I just do it for like, I don't know, 20 minutes. And I think it's so worth doing. So I'm just going to do this a little bit more, and then we will add the next ingredients. You can see how there's still some bits of butter running through it. You see that? That's what I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my egg. By the way, I wanted to clarify. I took some boiling water, added it to a ramekin, then I put in some of my currants. Adding some milk. I need about very much, a bit more. And then I just take the currants, and I just do this all at once because I squeeze out all the excess water. Again, you might not want to do this. You might not think it makes a difference. I do think it makes a difference, and you know me. If I could skip a step, I'll skip it. But if I do it, because I really find that it makes a difference. And I am just, listen, I'm way too greedy of an eater. Eating is just way too important to me to have anything that's not superb, okay? Mix it in. It'll look too wet in the beginning, but it'll come together really beautifully and so quickly. Just give it some time. Now, I wanted to show you this process because you may be tempted to maybe add a touch more milk or something, because you can see this is really shaggy, but that's a good thing. It's going to eventually really start to come together. Now, I just want you to work somewhat quickly, because you see, as soon as it starts to get to this point, the butter will start to soften and then melt slightly. We don't want that. So then I pull it into a bowl. Now, you just saw me do it right in front of your eyes. There was no cut 2, take 2, none of that, okay? I'm going to roll this out to about, I always think this is about a ½ inch, right? Like the width of, the length, I guess, of my thumbnail. You can tell that I'm like a real home cook because I don't measure. And I feel like I live my best life that way, because if I had to make sure everything was so precise all the time, I probably just would not enjoy cooking as much as I do. This you can probably tell has been through the ringer. And if you've been with me and Laura in the kitchen, you know that this is at least over 10 years old. It's my biscuit cutter. I love this guy. For some reason, I feel like it's just the perfect size. And I love him so much. So look how beautiful. And these are gonna rise so beautifully. I'm gonna place them on my baking sheet. You can regroup this dough. In fact, I'm gonna cut these so fast, I'm gonna show you how quick it is to regroup the dough. And because it's not a yeasted dough, it doesn't give you a whole lot of trouble because sometimes you need to let dough rest before you re-roll it, but this really doesn't give me much trouble at all. I just kind of regroup it and re-pull it back into a little bit of a disc, like that. Nice and easy. Sprinkle a little bit of flour. And these are important things that sometimes I feel like even I, that has been doing this for such a long time, I always think, well, they know how to do that. But maybe you don't. And maybe you think that that was a waste. And trust me, it's never a waste, okay? I can sometimes be very extravagant when it comes to cooking, meaning I just love to cook a lot, but never wasteful. And I will get every single last biscuit out of this dough if it's the last thing that I do. I'm gonna get one more for sure. It won't be perfect, but it'll be a cook's treat. And you know what I always say, you always gotta have one of those. This would be the imperfect one, and this would be a waste, but it's okay. On your baking sheet, like so, like that. This may be a little bit close. That's all right. Look how gorgeous they are. I'm gonna grab my pastry brush. You're gonna take a little bit of milk, brush the top, like that. Now I've told you that the oven is preheated to 375. I'm gonna brush them with a little bit of milk on top. And then I'm going to sprinkle them ever so lightly with a little sugar. I'm using regular sugar, but you could do a nice demerara or raw sugar. And look how beautiful. And they're going to be fantastic. And let me tell you, hot with some homemade blackberry jam, which is what I'm going to serve these with, and a smear of butter, just so that the butter kind of melts in all those nooks and crannies. Perfection. I'm going to pop them in, bake. I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Wash my hands. Look how gorgeous. Look at those layers of flakiness. They baked for exactly 25 minutes and they're still quite hot. Look at them. Just complete perfection. I am going to serve these, like I told you, with some homemade blackberry jam. But for now, I just I could not resist a really nice hot one just slathered with some butter. If you've got some clotted cream, by all means. Very good. Very hot. Very hard to beat. That has like a more of like a biscuit vibe than a dry scone vibe. Perfection on every level. You just need some really good jam to go along with it, and it's heaven. I'm gonna learninthekitchen.com for the written recipe. I just stabbed my finger in some butter. I've done worse. Hope you enjoyed spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.